Hey guys, so this is the AUDIOCULAR BR, and AUDIOCULAR is a Chinese brand, and what makes the AUDIOCULAR BR so special is its price range, because you effectively get an in-ear monitor for less than 500 rupees or around $7 or less. Now, as we've come to expect with in-ear monitors that are very, very cheap and affordable, so they have to cut corners somewhere, and that is very evident when you see their packaging. So it's an absolutely bare bones packaging, nothing spectacular at all. When you open the pack, you're greeted with some different size silicone ear tips, and of course the AUDIOCULAR BR in-ear monitors themselves. Now, these don't have your traditional 2-pin detachable connector cables, so the cables come permanently attached. So if you happen to damage the cables somehow, you have to get another piece, a new piece, because these are not replaceable. Now, the cable is oxygen-free copper, which is good for sound transmission, and it has an inline microphone with a multifunction control button with which you can do the usual like play and pause tracks, answer and calls, etc. And the cable ends in an L-shaped 3.5mm audio jack. Now, in terms of the specs, so these have a single 10mm dynamic driver inside, and it's got an impedance of 20 ohms. So because these are such low impedance in-ear monitors, you wouldn't need an additional DAC to power these. Your phone should do the job just fine. But if you're like me and you just want to be extra careful, it's always good to have a DAC handy, and I'll link the one that I use in the description below. Okay, so I'm not going to prolong this review and I'm going to keep it very short. Let's start with some of the good things. So obviously the first and foremost thing is the price. When you get an in-ear monitor for 500 rupees, that is spectacular. That is amazing. And it's good for someone who's been used to earphones traditionally and is starting to make a shift to in-ear monitors, but they don't want to spend a ton of money. So this is a starting point in terms of price. We'll get to quality later. Now, talking about the build itself, so it's got resin, and surprisingly, even though these are cheap in terms of price, the resin didn't feel cheap at all. It looks good, it feels very smooth to touch, no jagged edges, and the comfort is also okay. Not the best, but it does a good job. And the inclusion of the inline microphone is also a plus point, because the quality of the microphone was A-OK and I was clearly audible on the other end. There was no distortion. So these are the good stuff. Now we'll get into what's not so good. Alright, and this is where I have to get into the main criteria, which is the audio quality, because ultimately these are in-ear monitors. So if the sound is not good, you shouldn't waste any money, no matter how cheap it is. Alright, so now you guys know, if you're an existing viewer, I judge these in-ear monitors based on how they produce the 3 main frequencies that broadly make up any sound that you hear: the highs, the mids, and the lows. The highs, or the treble, where the really sharp sounding instruments are, the mids, or the vocals, and the low end, or the bass response. Okay, starting off with the higher frequencies, or the treble response. The moment I use these in-ear monitors, the treble or the higher frequencies absolutely attack you head on. So they are really, really sharp, a bit too sharp, do get a bit unpleasant, and the voices or any instrument in those higher frequencies, the upper highs, sound a bit sibilant. So the S's are too sharp and they're not as pleasant, not as rich as you would want them to be. So higher frequencies, in my opinion, have a bit over sharpening going on, which makes the overall experience unpleasant. For someone who just listens to music and wants a good pair of in-ear monitors, the highs might be a bit too overwhelming. Okay, now talking about the mid frequency or the vocals. The vocals again are way too sharp. So this is okay if you're going to listen to a podcast or interviews where vocals is all that matters. But having said that, the vocals have too much sharpness and they lack depth, they lack body, they lack warmth. So after a point of time, because I've heard so many other in-ear monitors and earbuds as well, it just sounds unpleasant. The same with the highs. So they are too upfront, don't have body, don't have richness. It's just sharpness, sharpness, sharpness all the way, which is not pleasant at all. Again, you can mitigate this by tweaking the equalizer, but you shouldn't have to do that for every frequency. So not a fan of the mids. So highs and mids did not impress me, and rather they were kind of unpleasant. Finally, we get to the low end or the bass response. Now, Usually this is kind of like a saving grace where I can at least say the bass response was really good and thumpy and punchy, but the bass response was very poor. Very disappointed because it was lacking bass to a level where even if I'm using a bass boost preset from my equalizer, it's still not giving me any amount of sufficient bass. So these absolutely not for a bass head. And even if someone who's getting into in-ear monitors, I know these are like extremely cheap, but the sound quality is not something I'm a fan of at all. So guys, in summary, I would say that the audio quality of the AUDIOCULAR BR was disappointing, and I would not suggest that you guys invest in these. There are a host of other in-ear monitors that are not as cheap as these, but definitely for a little more, you get something which is amazing. And I'll list a few in the description below, or I'll leave a link of a video I've done of in-ear monitors that you should check out. So definitely have a look at that and make a better decision. For the AUDIOCULAR BR, stay away from these. Alright guys, so there you have it. That was my very honest and ruthless review of the AUDIOCULAR BR in-ear monitors. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Definitely share this video with someone who is bent on buying these, but they should know the truth about these as well before they waste their money. And I'm sure AUDIOCULAR will come out with something great or good in the future, and if they do, I will definitely post a video on that and let you guys know. So guys, thank you so much for stopping by, and stay safe, and I'll catch you guys very soon in the next one. Cheers.